Salutations, friends. Eric and Mark here for another installment of League on Lock, and it's fantastic Wednesday action from the LCK because you got 3 best of series, which is their theme going forward. There's a whole lot of League to get through, and where else can we start other than SKT MVP, which, you know, looks like SKT should be a win for them to get back on track. But oh no, look at this. SKT2 has shown up, the B team in full force in this game. Coma, interesting strategy.
I don't know if Coma's been watching our show and was waiting and listening.
He definitely has.
He was listening to you talk all about, are we going to see Pyrion? Are we going to see Pyrion? And yeah, we're definitely seeing Pyrion in the mid lane. Faker being benched for the first time in over 800 consecutive games starting for the SKT T1.
Yeah, going back to the Easy Hoon days, and obviously they're already looking for something. It almost seems a little, I don't want to say desperate, but I mean, they're already trying all this interesting stuff. It got off to a good start in game 1. Blossom was active on the Camille. You had Pyrion with the chicken skin for the Galio, something you don't get to see when Faker plays because he doesn't use skins, so that was interesting.
Look, as someone who likes to see some skins, and I'm sure Riot, you know, maybe selling a couple bit more RP here, likes to see Pyrion playing, but in game 1, it was just the combination of CC and knockups that they were able to get going on into the MVP composition. The MVP only had so much damage coming out in the early game from things like the Fiddlesticks and the Rise. Just into the late game, you simply did not have enough damage to get it done. And you know what? As much criticism as people have in the past, and you know what? Spoiler warning, that we're going to be giving SKT today, you do have to give them credit in Coma for preparing and getting ready. You know what? Everyone else has been really struggling into that Dr. Mundo pick, but getting Nasus seemed to be quite a good counter for that.
And Pyrion did look good on that Galio, and with that SKT, the B team gets the first win for the team on the split as we dive into game 2 where we had, you know, he was trying to predict the flash with that Sejuani ult. Obviously, it went a little short, but this is SKT getting dived upon, and this game was a little bit more questionable for them. They got a little over-aggressive with some dives, Pyrion in particular with the globals. That is too deep, my dudes.
You are quite a bit away from the rest of your teammates there. Not exactly what you're going to want to be doing. This was relatively a pretty straightforward game from MVP. Not too long on the clock. They took care of business, taking down SKT and tying up the series.
Which means we're going into game 3. Time to put Faker in, bring Bang back for the 3rd game.
Wait. Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
So clearly predetermined that these guys were playing the entire set regardless of how it was going. And you had Pyrion on the Irelia in this one, which is interesting in this set because he basically just played champions that Faker can play, does play, and plays better.
Yeah, certainly questionable. They're almost as questionable as Ian going back in there, engaging on the Zoe and dying. But also, you know what's bad? This engage in the top lane is certainly not what you need to be doing as SKT. Effort getting caught once again. Great positioning from MVP to catch them both there with out of the Tom Kench spit up there and get both of them there for the kill.
So that was diving too deep, a little without vision. They didn't really know who was going to show up. And this, again, is going a little too deep under turret, and MVP is able to turn it around. That was kind of the theme in this set for SKT, was just getting too over-aggressive and trying to make too many plays, which, I don't know, maybe they're trying to prove their spot on the spot, but didn't work out.
No, and you know what? It wasn't exactly, you know, the Haku yes hook there, right there from Thresh, but you gotta say the Thresh was popping off for
Max
MVP
was looking
in
clean.
This one. That bot lane pilot on the Callista even, something that we haven't seen picked and really shown working so far yet, and especially wouldn't expect it with the ADC changes coming through, but certainly popping off, and oh yeah, that's a clean stopwatch there from Ian, making up for that mistake in the early game, and oh no, MVP take down SKT.
0-3 for SKT, and
the darkest timeline.
That game, it looked like Leo might maybe pop off. We didn't have the clip, but specifically in the Baron pit, there were all 5 members were super low for MVP, and the Baron was getting low. He picked off one. It looked like, oh my God, this is a YouTube clip, pentakill and a Baron steal, but he ended up just walking away.
Yeah, you know, I almost wanted to yell, Mom, get the camera, get ready for it. It's going to be the tours. But no, he only took out one of them in the Baron pit and then just left the rest of them there. You saw he was on the Ezreal. He had the skills, he had the moves to get away from a couple shots there, but then just decided to move back later. And even though we also didn't show that there as well, Blossom at the end of the game, very questionable going after the enemy team's red buff as the base of SKT is absolutely being smashed in by Baron-enhanced minions with the rest of MVP. I don't know what to say. This was one of the worst days to watch SKT play.
So, I don't want to overreact after that, but SKT is the worst team in the LCK. They're not going to Worlds. Faker is leaving the team, and he's going to come to North America. On a more serious note, it is probably time to start panicking a little bit because they don't have really any room for error after their spring split. If they want to make Worlds, I think Worlds is pretty much out of the question right now for them.
I would really think so as well. And I was so hopeful that things were going to come through for summer and the preparations would have been done for this. They've just simply come into this patch unprepared and not ready for it. And when you're thinking about what they're doing, they've been mostly scrimming this past week, period, in the mid lane. And it's kind of questionable thinking, Faker's not really the issue here for this team. I don't think he ever really would be. And then you're looking, well, who else performed well today? Well, Leo. But Bang also hasn't been the issue for SKT.
Definitely not.
The problems are still in top, jungle, and support.
Which is 3/5 of your team, so that's a bit of an issue. Now, I will say SKT, as long as they make playoffs, there's always hope for them to turn it around. But making playoffs right now looks questionable. It doesn't look questionable making playoffs for Gen.G. The revamped KSV lineup have had a fantastic start to 2018 summer, and they had some action against Hanwha Life Esports, who were 2-1 coming into this matchup. And Gen.G, the story has been Ruler playing meta 80 carries, legitimate 80 carries, actual marksman, and performing super well for them. He had the Ezreal in all 3 games. Yeah, there's 3 games in this set. He was Ezreal in all 3 of them. This one started off with a little bit of cheese from Haru on the Rengar. Does his own red and then goes right top.
Maybe with this organization, it's as simple as they're just kind of like a caterpillar, right? Changing names and need to get out of that cocoon to finally be a butterfly here, shed the KSV name, become Gen.G, and they're finally once again looking like the Samsung Galaxy team that we saw win Worlds last season in this summer split. Definitely showing up. Really like it.
Was Samsung a butterfly and then they reverted back to a caterpillar as KSV and then back to a butterfly? That's a weird bug, man.
To be honest, I didn't take biology past grade 10, so I don't know that much about it.
Further than me.
But I feel pretty confident in that analogy. But when you're looking here in this game, it was all Gen.G in game 1, but Hanwha Life comes right back in game 2, looking to take it and even the series.
Yeah, it was the Sang-Yoon show. They throw him on that Kai'Sa mid with the smite, funnel all your resources into him, and I actually like this funnel comp that they did because it is Sang-Yoon on Kai'Sa, who is comfortable on that champion, and they put Lava Bottom on a Lulu. It makes sense. You're actually putting your players on champions that they're comfortable on, even if it's not the lane you usually see them in.
Right, when you're talking about this meta, a lot of times people are saying you need to be playing the champions that are the strongest, but sometimes you're playing champions that are just simply play styles that you are not trained or accustomed on, let alone especially at a level that you need to be to play at a professional level, even in the LCK. And so when you're talking about this composition here, absolutely the right move, moving the Kai'Sa to the mid lane there and picking up all that CS. This is a strategy that I've been begging my friends to play. You know what? It's a little boring for them for 20, 30 minutes, but hey, I gotta say, if you're the Kai'Sa, it's pretty darn fun.
Yeah, 13 kills for Sang-Yoon in that one, no deaths, so pretty clean. We're on to game 3, and it's Ruler on Ezreal yet again, stealing dragons, doing it all for Gen.G. I almost called them Samsung, but that bot lane has been far and away the best performing bottom lane in the LCK so far, and Fly and Haru continue to get the starts in pretty much every game.
Yeah, I think it was Ruler that was quoted as saying that, this meta is hell, but they were kind of a bit wrong exactly with the quoting of it. And he was saying it's hell because I have so many champions that I want to be picking to play. But buddy, you're just stepping up on the Ezreal and that's all you've been playing. It's pretty funny when the Ezreal Samsung skin comes out for Worlds this year, it's actually not even going to be for Ruler, it's for Haru, but this Ezreal looked clean enough that you could guess that it would be his skin. Gen.G taking the victory.
Yeah, that's a tragedy that the skin's going to Haru and not Ruler. But yeah, I mean, that guy has been playing out of his mind. Fly continues to look great. Apart from that, I really just credit the draft that Hanwha had in that game too, and obviously Sang-Yoon played super well on that Kai'Sa. But clean games 1 and 3 from Gen.G. They go to 4-0 and still look like the team to beat probably in the LCK right now.
And if you're expecting to see Crown return anytime soon for Gen.G, I don't think I would do that as well, because right now he seems to be dealing with a bit of some depression issues. Wondering, he's been talking to some former StarCraft champions and saying, he hasn't really been able to find happiness exactly through his World Championship last season. So we do wish him well in his recovery from that. But right now, enjoying seeing Fly in the mid lane for Gen.G because it's working pretty darn well.
Yeah, we do hope to see Crown back in the lineup at some point, and I'm sure we will throughout the split. Coming up after the break, we got some more LCK action. Griffin looks to match Gen.G at 4-0, and is Uzi gonna keep playing actual AD carries in the bottom lane? What's up, guys? Welcome back to League Unlock. Eric and Mark here. We already went over Gen.G moving to 4-0, but before they actually played, Griffin started off the day for Week 2 action from the LCK, taking on Jin Air, who are winless, and Griffin sitting at 3-0. These guys just can't lose. They won 14 in a row in the challenger scene, win 3 in a row to start off their LCK careers, and we thought this would be a legit team, maybe fight for that final playoff push, but they are looking real good to start off their LCK careers.
And not to add too much flame to the fire, but I gotta say, SKT T2, they look like a challenger team. And Griffin Esports, they certainly look like they belong in the LCK.
Yeah, absolutely. They haven't played any of the legit teams yet, so we have to say that. But against Jin Air, they look pretty solid. Viper had the 80 carry gangplank. Kakao could not land a smite in this game. Tarzan was stealing everything from him, and Kakao he hasn't played that much yet on Jin Air, but he hasn't looked fantastic, I'll say that. Griffin dumpstered game 1.
You were hoping to see better from him, especially considering what his performance had been in the Turkish league before this, hoping that you would maybe carry some of that success here, obviously knowing that the skill difference is quite high with the LCK, not translating exactly so well early. But Griffin is doing exactly what you wanted to see them do when you talked about them entering the LCK from the challenger scene, talking about who was going to be the carries for them. Well, Viper in that bot lane, that AD carry for them, is one of the better players on that roster. But right now, it really does seem that him alongside Chovy in the mid lane are truly what is leading to them being so explosive and how they're able to out-macro their opponents.
Yeah, and Chovy subbed in here for game 2. Rather did look good in game 1, but Chovy has been electric so far in the the summer split, excuse me. And Viper here, the AD carry, Irelia. So game 1, Gangplank, game 2, Irelia. Obviously, those are big picks that we've seen so far in 2018, but not really in the bot lane. You haven't seen it much there. He performed fantastically in both matchups with those AD carries. And I mean, for a new player to be comfortable on such a diverse set of champions, it is super impressive. And by the way, Griffin completely dumpstered Jin Air. A couple of 25-ish minute games, and they moved to 4-0. Jin Air 0-4. That's bad.
Yikes, really rough start for sad playing there for Jin Air.
There'll be a lot of sad playing this split, I think.
But really happy there for Griffin, really performing and proving themselves here against another team in the LCK. One that, yes, they've had a rough start to this summer split, but had been, prior pretty well established into that middle pack zone of the LCK. So they're starting to climb up here, and they get another chance to keep moving up as they get to take on what looks like a pretty weak SKT squad right now.
Yeah, that'll be exciting on Friday. I'm still waiting for Griffin to play a top-tier team, and it won't happen on Friday because SKT is not a top-tier team. A top-tier team in China is RNG. Basically, whatever they do in the regular season is irrelevant as long as they make playoffs, because they can go on a run. But Uzi is still playing meta 80 carries for the most part. They were taking on Suning Gaming this in week 2 of the LPL, who were 3-0. Looks still undefeated so far in the LPL split, which is a little bit surprising. Most people probably not expecting them to perform so well. Game 1, oh no.
Uh-oh.
Uzi gets Kai'Sa.
Uh-oh, there's the Kai'Sa. This is gonna be big time trouble.
So this set was really interesting because there were some prominent lane swaps. Zatai here is sitting on the bottom lane on Sion. They already ganked him once. They came back, killed him again. And then around the 23-minute mark, that's a 2-man Baron with the Kai'Sa and Sion before MLXG comes in. That's a little silly that you can do that.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the big changes that people are kind of forgetting about Baron right now is that, yes, it did get tankier in previous patches, but right now in this current patch, they've nerfed the actual damage that the Baron is dealing out, so you definitely can join in and jump in there with as low as 2 members early enough and take down that Baron and sneak yourself a quick buff.
You just need a meat shield for the Kai'Sa to sit there and auto-attack it down. RNG, they were behind in kills the whole game, but still had like a 10k gold lead. They take game 1. Game 2!
Oh boy.
That is the Master Yi Taric combo. How does RNG counter it? They just sent Uzi and Ming mid. It's genius.
Yeah, it looks like RNG has said, we've got our brains on for this one, and this is what you do when you have this type of strategy going on. That super funneling in mid that we always talk about, yeah, it's not exactly perfect if you're able to push in that mid lane. You just bring people in like RNG did, said, hey, Uzi, get over here. Get into mid lane and just push in this lane and not allow them to swap out and get that extra experience in the CS there, and it absolutely disrupts the super funneling strategy.
Yeah, and this is the first time, at least I can recall, seeing Uzi on that AD Kennen in this matchup. The big turnaround fights were around Baron, Suning attempting them. He got it. They got it a few times, but RNG just cleaned up these fights. Ming was fantastic in this set, as he continues to be in all of 2018. RNG and Suning their first loss on the split. 2-0, pretty convincing wins, but the lane swaps in this set were just super interesting and really good macro play by RNG.
And hey, besides from watching some pretty awesome League of Legends in the LPL, if you're not watching it right now and seeing RNG and WE at their home arenas, you should be watching, because these venues are amazing.
It's amazing. The LPL is definitely doing that right. It's a momentous occasion. We have to say farewell to one of the greatest players in the early days of League of Legends history. MadLife officially announced his retirement from the pro scene, although you could argue he's basically been retired ever since he came to the NA Challenger scene with Gold Coin United. I like to think he retired before that whole debacle. But there's no question he's one of the greatest League players of all time. Where's he rank for you?
Oof, you know what? You've got to have him right now, kind of. He's one of those guys that you think would be almost on that Mount Rushmore type of thing for League of Legends. He's been almost one of the OGs. Just so many awesome plays from him.
He made playing support actually fun. You know, back in the early days where you had no gold, there'd be 50-minute games and you're sitting on a Sightstone and 6 pink wards. It wasn't exactly fun, but on these playmakers like Thresh and Blitzcrank, he was an absolute animal, and obviously it is a rare breed to have a play named after you. And of course, we have the MadLife, predicting people's flashes, which is almost routine now for people. But back in the day, it was all MadLife, and he was the only one capable of doing that. I know we hadn't really been relevant for seasons, 5 and onwards, maybe even a little earlier than that, but he is still one of the pioneers of early League of Legends, and if/when there is a Hall of Fame, whether it's in Korea or just globally, there's no doubt that MadLife will be in there.
Yep, as an AD carry in mid-main, I'm always making fun of and getting on the cases of the supports, even though they're propping me up and helping me. But MadLife was absolutely one of the first ones that I watched and said, this guy is for real, real deal. Love watching this guy. He was exciting to watch as a support, and that almost never happened to me in those early days. And it's something that I really think that we're going to be missing in the League of Legends scene, and I do wish him nothing but the best.
I hope he sticks around in the scene as a coach or something to help out a team.
Maybe SKT could pick him up.
Definitely go to SKT. They can use all the help they can get. Maybe Rapid Star was actually the secret to their success recently. Coming up after the break, we're going to take a look at Week 2 of the LCS, some matches to watch, and there are some dandies in EU and NA. Welcome back to League on Lock, everybody. Eric and Mark here, and Week 2 of the LCS is on the horizon over yonder. We're going to take a look at some of the matches of the week to check out in NA and EU. There are some juicy matchups with many storylines going as teams still try and figure out patch 8.11. EU seems to be the most interesting region with the craziest picks, which is always a fun time. But let's start off in NA. You got TSM versus Team Liquid, which of course is probably the most interesting rivalry and storyline in the NA LCS, with Doublelift leaving, stealing a title from TSM, even though he didn't actually play them. But to start off, week 1, TSM looked a whole lot better than Liquid.
This was the TSM that everyone expected to see last split. This was more so it in this time, and it was really refreshing to watch. And I think the big difference here was certainly in the jungle. And I don't want to say that Mike Young is not able to do this for TSM, but Grig was providing exactly what TSM needed. He was certainly not shying away from what we've heard on the team calls and the composition, exactly demanding what he needed and relaying the information exactly to his teammates in all situations, which is so vital here. And when I'm thinking back on how this one's going to go, you have to think back all the way to spring split, that first game, that first week where TSM got absolutely dumpstered right away by TL, and then in the later half of that split, TSM dumpster TL in return. So I think this one is definitely going to be a lot more even, but I'm excited to watch here the differences in how they're approaching this meta. I think that TL is still thinking that we're going to be moving towards things like the Vladimir bot lane. He's been seeing a double lift practice that quite a bit more and trying to become better than he was at it last week. But I think exactly. And I think that TSM will try to stay a little bit more conventional with something for Sven, more so towards an ADC. But at the same time, Sven is currently rocking a number 2 or number 3 ranking in North America on the solo queue. And he's been playing things like the Aurelia, Yasuo bot lane. So he's not shying away from these meta picks as well.
I'd love to see Yasuo bot for one of these 80 carries in that bottom lane. So you think TSM's favored pretty heavily?
I like TSM in this one. Given that performance last week, I think that you got to stick with the TSM boys.
Yeah, I think they probably take it as well. Let's jump over to EU, where you have an even more interesting matchup in terms of meta. Fnatic taking on Vitality, 1-1 versus 2-0, and these teams have completely different reads on the meta so far. Fnatic just plays supports in the bottom lane, Caps on Kai'Sa, all the eggs in his basket to carry, whereas Vitality is playing some insane stuff. The four marksmen that have been played between these two teams: Karma, Janna, Heimerdinger, and Lux. This is the world we're living in. This is the world we're living in. I gotta think Vitality's actually probably favored in this. Fnatic was way behind against Schalke, and then all of a sudden they win a team fight when Caps has 9,000 CS at 20 minutes and win. But Vitality looked way more clean in their 2 wins than Fnatic did in week 1.
There are real issues that people can have with this meta, but I have to say the last week of watching Professional League of Legends might have been the most fun that I've ever had watching it, and absolutely in the EU LCS is a huge part of that with Vitality. But I think that right now I have to stick with the Fnatic boys. I'm hoping that they maybe pick up a little bit more something fresh in the meta right now as far as what to do, and don't rock just as, hey, let's just put Caps on Kai'Sa and get him 400 CS and have that be all it needs to be. Because although that's pretty great, and I think that Caps is a very skilled player to do that, I would like to see a little bit more, a little bit more brains coming out for some of these compositions.
There's no way you could make the argument that putting Reckless on Janna or Karma is going to be your best win condition going forward. I got to assume they were just trying out that comp, trying to master it, and they definitely didn't master it, but they looked a lot better the second time they played it than in game 1. Vitality, I can't wait to see what the heck they're going to pull out in that bottom lane, but it should be a full fiesta in EU for week 2, just like week 1, which I can't wait for. That's all the time today for League on Lock. Eric and Mark here. Thank you guys for watching. We will see you next time.